Hey guys, October 20th, 2025 here with your after hours recap. So we'll just start with, there's quite a bit. So let's just kind of get started at the top. I talked about this a bit on Friday where, you don't really want to be shorting something 6-7 days in a row going into the 200 simple moving average. In fact, if you still liked Bitcoin, this would have been indeed a place to try and get long using that 200 simple moving average as your guide. And sure enough, today, over the weekend, it does gap up a little bit. It does push a little bit more, which was very nice to see for the crypto bulls. And anybody who thinks that this can be going higher, I'm of the belief that if this is going to go higher, we're probably going to have to get ourselves back into that 118, 120K range, tighten up a few more, days from there, build another higher low, and then potentially, breaking out of then a multi-month consolidation. I think that would be the best look. But ultimately, Friday's low is the line in the sand that you would want to see hold, which is the 200 simple moving average. Again, very, very simply, the same way I was, kind of telling students in the room, don't be buying this thing up 4 or 5 days in a row. Similarly, don't be shorting this thing after 6-7 days on the downside in a row. So just something to think about. Really, again, nice to see crypto kind of hang in there. On the flip side, some of the data center names. I don't know if this had to do with Amazon Web Services being down today or what have you, but Oracle absolutely got its ass kicked all day long. It had some presentation or conference a handful of days ago and then, kind of closed fairly poorly, and then back-to-back days, Friday and today, all while the market is pushing higher. Oracle acting very poorly. So something's clearly not acting all that great, or something's in the water there. I have no idea, but for me, we'll see tomorrow if this thing decides that it wants to start rebounding off of the 50 simple moving average, but ultimately not the best look at the moment. And with it, went CoreWeave, just weak all day long, and as well NBIS, which is another data center adjacent play where, kind of gets to the support gap and then starts to fail through there. So not the best, kind of a look for NBIS. Not saying that this move is done. It's just after you make a really big move like this, typically a pullback into the 50-day can be viable. So we'll see, what happens going forward. But NBIS ultimately, like CoreWeave, like Oracle, a little bit of weakness. And even in some of the others that have gotten, a little bit ahead of themselves here recently, some weakness in iron today. Nothing super, super terrible. Couldn't really even take out Friday's lows. So, don't want to speak too bad about it. But if this thing will just tighten up for a few more weeks, build a high type flag, I think it can be interesting in a few weeks from now. The rare earth names, if we're looking at like an MP, I thought it did also a very nice job kind of hanging on to the 20, hanging on to Friday's lows. This could look pretty interesting going into next week. I am short UAMY, and I've been short this thing from 18.5 bucks. I didn't cover any more off, and I will be using the 5-day simple moving average to kind of, gauge the risk, and I don't want to sit there. I've trimmed it already, so I'm not too concerned about it, and it's likely that I end up adding some more potentially higher, but over the 5-day, I will de-risk it some more, and then we'll just kind of let a little last bit of a runner go all the way back to my average if I have to. But the metals names, I thought had a fairly decent rebound today. USAR as well, I thought was acting pretty dang well with the bounce off the 20 days. So nice to see some of the metal names not necessarily going away. The metal that was actually most impressive today, I would say, was aluminum. And this is kind of noted with the action in AA. Super awesome action here. Now, I don't love much about the daily chart. I think it's just very, very choppy and kind of sloppy. But AA and CENX Century Aluminum is another one that actually had a really nice setup going into last month, September 11th, roughly September 10th. These things were acting well, and it has just been on a steady trend ever since. A little bit of weakness in the uranium space. You could kind of see CCJ pulling back just a little bit. Not much of a bid there today. Yes, still, a bit of an inside day, but really, not the best action. Oklo, again, another one of those, just a little bit of continued weakness. As long as you're hanging on to the 10 and 20, you know, I think that if you're in it for much lower, okay, fine, let it work. SMR, the laggard, didn't do a whole lot today. And then a few of the bigger names, GEV, a little bit of weakness today. What's the other one? CEG, a little bit of weakness today, and quite a bit at that, 4% down day, pretty ugly. And VST as well, a little bit of weakness, down 3.5%. So, and now residing below the 50 simple moving average. I look at price action like this, and it's just too sloppy. You know, I talked about it this morning on pre-market prep. You almost just wanted to see it, one, hold the 50-day, which it could not do right away. And two, for me, it would be taking out that 217 level, and it just, you know, we're nowhere close there right now. So just kind of hands off on some of these powering the data center plays, you know, and maybe they're just running with what you're seeing in Oracle and what you're seeing in NBIS and CoreWeave. I don't really know. Those are data center plays, and these are powering the data center names, and they might just be running hand in hand. Credit where credit is due. Apple, new all-time high. Congratulations to all the long-term Apple holders. You are sitting in blue sky territory. Every single person in history is bright green, and that is nice to see. You know, we're there. So, you know, I don't really see a reason to be too negative unless these turn into failed breakouts or something worse. But ultimately, you're at a new all-time high. There's not a shareholder in the red, and where do you sell it when everybody's bright green? The reality is you just kind of want to hold on tight. A little bit of got nice and tight, small little bit of a shakeout, and then right back to, off to the races. I didn't really see what the news was on Apple today. I know they're selling the hell out of their Apple iPhone 17. That's great and all. I know that they said they're going to do the revolutionary touchscreen technology on their MacBooks. That's also, pretty non-innovative, but good for them. And I'm a big Apple product guy, so yeah, I'm just kind of laughing because they don't really innovate too much. But who needs to innovate when you sell billions and billions of dollars every quarter? Good for them. Good for the Apple holders. It is acting well. Google was another one hitting an all-time high. You can't really be bearish when you've got Google and Apple, two of the handful of biggest companies in the entire world, two of the 5 or 6 biggest companies in the entire world hitting a new all-time high. Nice to see Microsoft kind of churning back above the 50 simple moving average. It doesn't look incredible, but it's done a nice job after earnings, just rebasing, building a new base, and just kind of hanging out near those highs from these April lows. That's exactly really what you want to see. Meta, another one. Yes, it's below the 50-day, but really, really nice push today. And Amazon hanging on to the 200 simple moving average despite Amazon Web Services going down. So ultimately, I thought the mega caps kind of led the way, and that was really nice to see. I also thought it was really nice to see how strong Chinese equities were. This did kind of have a lower pivot here back over Friday's highs. And we did even go back out and take that 1010s high out, which was when we had that, that Trump news with the tariffs on China, and the market sold off 3.5%. Baba was able to go and take out that 173 level. So really, really good to see. And with that, you had Pinduoduo acting very nicely as well today, which I no longer own. And Futu, I thought today was hanging in there pretty well also. Obviously not above that Friday's highs, but in my opinion, Baba is going to be your most important. So long as Baba is acting right, I really wouldn't stress the Chinese equities too much, so long as that name's got its act together. The genomic stocks, let's give a little bit of credit to Cathie Wood. She and her ETFs continue to crush it, and my ARK today, ARKK, acted fantastic. Well, ARKG, new closing high, and I want to say that this might even be well above a 52-week closing high. So that's awesome to see. And obviously TEM is one of the biggest holdings within that ETF. CRISPR, which I almost got myself to pull the trigger on today, not quite. CRISPR, nice little move out today with a subtle little gap up. And then NTLA is another one that's hanging in there pretty well, out at a new high as well. So it's not just these genomics names. Obviously, the biotech space is acting really well. And if you look at the XBI, if I'm not mistaken, this is a new closing high since April lows. So that's awesome to see. Biotech's acting fantastic. Really good to see. Cybersecurity stocks, I thought hung in there pretty well. This looks like just a classic cup and a handle setting up. So we'll see, what CrowdStrike and cybersecurity stocks have in store for us soon. CrowdStrike, Zscaler, similar deal, cup and setting up a handle, and then obviously a PANW, which recently saw a new all-time high, still hanging in there really, really well over the past handful of days. The world is healing. We got a bit more of an unwind in the quantum space. QBTS down 10% plus today, right into the 20 days. So, do we bounce some tomorrow? Do we build, this really subtle higher low? I'm unsure. I probably would venture to say that these names have maybe hit their highs, and they'd have to digest for a whole lot longer before ever, really making another meaningful move again. But I honestly have no clue. You look at an IONQ, and this thing was just trading $85 basically, and we're back undercutting 10-1's low. Not the best, although we are kind of holding on to that level, and we are potentially going to be bouncing on the 50-day tomorrow. Does this just become an undercut rally and maybe a great spot to get long? I have no idea. But you go from trading 85 all the way back down to 60. That happened quickly. So my Rigetti, which I also have as a short, is, went with the rest of them, a bit of an unwind. Again, and I'm not going to venture to say that, this was the all-time high, but ultimately if these things just continue to act heavy, ideally we break the 20 simple moving average, over the course of the next few days, weeks. I really don't care. I have already trimmed a piece there, so it is what it is, but it's nice to see some money kind of come out of, some of these frothier sectors, while mega caps hold up, while biotechs hold up, while genomics is a theme, while rare earths may be trying to bounce, while China hangs around. So there's money going to other places instead of just plowing into these, into these bunch of shitty companies who make absolutely no money. And really, it's a much better day, in my opinion, for the market when that is happening. The memory stocks, it seems like people forgot that they even like them. Kidding. Dad joke there. Dad joke. The memory stocks, pretty much a bearish engulfing today on STX. Really, really no bid all day long. You tried to take out Friday's highs, and then you effectively wash out all the way to Wednesday's lows. Not the best kind of look there, but, I don't want to write them off just yet. These things made these absolutely massive moves up that if they just based around the 50-day and then built a whole new base for weeks on end, I think that would be pretty healthy. WDC, another one of these, just another bearish engulfing bar. Again, we hung on to the 20. Do we get continued downside weakness tomorrow? I have no idea. All I know is that up here, it's very sloppy. Right in here, it was nice and tight. There is a difference in setups, and it's probably good. People learn what tight actually looks like, because this is nice and tight. This is wide and loose, and there is no real setup up here to really be buying anyway. That's not saying that they can't go higher. It's just kind of some food for thought. We talked about a bit of the nuclear unwind already. I would probably say the most notable thing that happened in the market today that we have yet to talk about is how well gold recovered. When you get volume like this on Friday, the fact that you were able to recover the entire move with that kind of volume, is this a little bit like 10-9? Where, you had a big pickup in volume. It was on the downside. It was the biggest volume of the entire move. Obviously, this 10-10, you really didn't recover the whole move. And then it, pushed higher for a handful more days. Then here we go again, gigantic pickup in volume. And by the very next day, it's hitting a new all-time high. Super, super impressive. But the GDX, which is the gold miner ETF, not quite the same. You had this big ugly move down on Friday, and then today a little bit of an inside bar. So kind of weird with that divergence. You would have thought the gold miners in particular would have been hanging out a little bit better, but really when you look around the space and you see a big down move on Friday and then an inside bar, you can look at, well, the biggest name in the world in the gold space, NEM, and that's exactly what it looks like. You can look at an AEM, and that's exactly what it looks like. So it looks just like the GDX, but there is a big divergence going on there. I don't know which way that's going to resolve. I am still short Nugget, so we'll kind of just, today I was like, oh man, look at the strength in gold. Look at the strength in gold. Like, I don't really know what to do. I don't know if I should cover some. I don't know what's going on, because if all of the underlying stocks are telling me that, they're not that strong, part of me goes, that's probably trying to tell me something about what may or may not happen to gold over the next coming days. Or is it possible that gold just continues to melt higher, and then, it drags along the gold miners with it? I don't really know. So I'm just kind of hanging tight until I get a little bit more information for tomorrow. Like I said, you've got an NEM, fine, hanging up well. But then on the flip side of that, you've got a name like Royal Gold, which by end of day, yes, it's also still an inside day, but you're closing down at the lows on some volume selling off. I have no idea. I was not very impressed with the gold miners today. I was very impressed with gold today. Impressed with some aluminum names, impressed with the bounce back in crypto. There were some places where you're just like, oh, okay, wow, there's definitely some money trying to go there. But ultimately, if you have a position, you kind of just have to respect it and treat it for its own price action. The price action in gold miners today was too split for me to feel any one kind of way. So it was just a matter of me leaving it alone. S&P 500, the NASDAQ, and the QQQ really, I thought held in there fairly well. We did not quite take out that Friday's highs. What happens tomorrow? Do we pull back? I don't know. We've got earnings coming up this week. Netflix, Tesla, those are some very important ones that I'll be watching. So I think the market for me, it's just stay positioned in the names you're already long, stay positioned in the names you're already short. And then kind of ride this little bit of a wave into earnings and figure out, our names gapping down, our names gapping up and selling off, our names gapping down and being bought up, our names gapping up and then just following through. I don't really know. So just continue to have to try and take it one day at a time, put together my watch list as best as I can, and then by the end of the day, try to figure out where the heck is money going, and where is money leaving, and then do I have some tight technical setup to, get along the particular trend, whether it's China or genomics or, shorting the metals or relonging the metals. I have no idea right now, but it's just a one day at a time kind of thing for me. So anyway, hopefully you guys all had an awesome trading day, and I will see you guys bright and early tomorrow. Cheers.